spent a lot of time not enjoying playing music, and it was just miserable because it was something that as a kid I was so connected to, I was so in touch with. And then, you know, life kind of happens and then you're not, and it's only been recently that I've rediscovered how to enjoy it again, and just having that gratitude and that appreciation for being able to do that every night. And whatever happens, happens, but as long as we're up there doing what we love doing, being the truest form of ourselves, you know, and kind of letting the rest take care of it with some conscious nudging here and there, you know, like we will always have that, we'll always have each other, and we'll always have the just the joy that comes with sharing the stage with these other four guys. I lost touch with my why, you know, like, I mean, I've tried to be really intentional at everything I do, and, you know, always have a reason why you're doing something. And, you know, for a while, and this is before I met these guys, I was doing it for the wrong reasons, you know, it was because I was good enough to make some money at it, and I was doing, but I wasn't as creative or spiritually involved as I needed to be, as I wanted to be when I was in high school, pretending I was Bruce Springsteen singing to my mirror, you know, and so, but life happens, and the only way you can learn from it is by doing it. You know, it's not like I intentionally set off to do that, but it takes some perspective, and it takes some things to be able to take a step back and say, whoa, okay, well, why am I doing this? And it's just crazy little subtle adjustments that you can make, and then, you know, just being open to what happens and staying true to yourself. And then I walk into this incredible situation with David, who I've known for a while, and Eric, who has been awesome getting to know and being able to work with. Being very calculated and intentional about why I do things, and staying humble with that.
Every single artist, whether it's like music, you know, fine art, painting, any type of art medium, you're gonna like have struggles because you're not gonna be able to look at your art and I don't know. There's a lot of hills and valleys that you kind of see, like, because you're doing something that's so personal to you, and then you're putting it out to the world, and don't know what people think of it, you know. Or you do on the opposite side. I've seen bands do things where they like write music for the people, and that's not well received or something. So it's constant hills and valleys of ups and downs. Super humbling for sure. Any artist or anyone that's, you know, my dad's actually a painter, fine arts painter, and just from his perspective of dealing with different galleries or dealing with different things, and seeing how art can be looked at as kind of a I don't know, when you're in a financial, it's a luxury item, you know, and then people stop buying it. And then you can reflect that upon yourself. Is it because my art's not good? Or, you know, it's such a personal and emotional thing that you're doing, and you're like hoping people like it. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Constantly evolving, constantly changing, you're never satisfied. It's a double-edged sword, because if you're never, you know, but I mean, being an artist and not being satisfied and want to strive for more is like a stimulating thing.
Yeah, I think that it's like that leap of faith kind of thing. It's like once you decide, you know, like the financial struggle, obviously I'm preaching to the choir, it's very real, you know, trying to get by and trying to put food on the table, still, you know, still make a living, have a creative outlet, have something you're proud of. But, you know, you're in limbo of, you know, being maybe overly humble, what you're doing, maybe being a little overly ambitious sometimes, but I really feel like it's kind of just like a leap of faith, really, just kind of, there's kind of that moment of limbo where you decide. I think the main thing is, for most artists, is where you decide where you're willing to maybe sacrifice your quality of life, right, your standard of living, I should say, rather. Learn that, you know, you can only spend so much if you want to live this way, for depending on how long you want to do it, you know. I think that's the ongoing struggle for any artist, and we're no exception for that, you know. We're all trying to find ways to make bread on the side, and trying to find ways to pay our bills and keep a roof over our heads. But I think the really exciting thing is when something pays off, you know, when you get that recognition, when you get a paycheck for something that you really like put your heart into. I think that's kind of addicting. I think that's when you start getting into this zone where you just want to keep on doing it because it's paying off on all ends. And then those are also the times I feel like we need to remember when we have dry spells, which also I'm probably preaching to the choir, you know, you have really good months and then you have really tough months. But if you can remember that and hang on to that feeling when you're like dried up and barely making ends meet, you know, I feel like it, in the end, comes to it.
For us, we've been super fortunate as a band. I mean, there's a lot of things you can take for granted, and a lot of opportunities you can take for granted until you take a big step back. You know, a lot of the times, at least in the community that we're in, sometimes you find like you're on your own little island, and other bands are on their own little island. But when you take a step back and you kind of like analyze, like what opportunities we've been given, what gifts we've been given, to, you know, succeed and rise as a band, like we've been so fortunate. I really don't have that many. Yeah, there's a ton of room for growth. We're constantly growing, but that's the point about it being an artist. My dad's in his 60s and is growing as an artist, you know, being an oil painter and pastel painter and watercolor, different mediums, and we're growing as artists. We're growing, making better connections with the audience, making better connections with an audience just listening as opposed to live. Writing, every aspect we're constantly growing, and so to say we're like, oh man, we're really in a bad spot. I don't think we've been there yet.
We've also got the universal language of music and songwriting is really special. You know, it's really unique. It's unlike anything else. You know, it's crazy to watch someone perform in Japan or something. Like watch a John Mayer perform in Japan and everyone's singing along to his songs.
Yeah.
You know, that don't even speak.
Pretty wild.
You know, like it's just there's nothing. I can't think of anything else that's like it. You know.
I think spiritual happiness will always come before financial, you know, outside stuff. You know, like you could be making more money and be unhappy and find a way to be unhappy.
A lot of times for the Brevet, it's inspiration, it's hope, it's a lot of those key love, you know, it's a lot of those key themes, and someone is affected by that, even as one person. I think that's the coolest thing.
Just in terms of humility and selflessness, just even if we're playing for 5 people, when we do play those small shows in Fullerton, those to me are almost just as fun, because I just honestly, like, whether I'm playing for 5 people or 5,000 people or whatever, it's of course there's nothing like having the energy of a ton of people, you know, there with you. But really, just to be just playing music with these guys and just to try and make the best out of every situation you can. Easier said than done, of course, you know. Especially like John was saying, when you've just come from a small tour and just packed out a bunch of rooms and you come back and you're playing for 10 people. There's a few minutes of like, oh, shit, you know, but then you get over it, you start playing, you realize that, you know, we just need to do whatever we can. And at the end of the night, we have 2 or 3 more people that dig us and that follow us. And that's another really cool thing very unique thing about music is,
if you can like touch one person, right, make one person a fan, it's slowly building, man.
I think it's like in a nutshell, I feel like essentially not even with just music, but it's just this money can really screw things up for a lot of people. You know, trying to make a career out of something you love can really fuck it up. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Can I say that? Yeah, I can really.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
By no means are we saying we don't like money.
of course.
Like,
Yeah. You know, like I heard Bill Withers say once, he was at a friend's house at a barbecue, and he's eating barbecue with his friend. He's like, man, you make really good barbecue. You should open a restaurant. And it was like one of his musician friends. And he's like, no, if I did that, I wouldn't like barbecuing anymore. Like, you know, like I like having you guys come over. You know, it's like, I don't want to speak for Bill. It's blasphemous. I'm not trying to do that. I think of that a lot because, you know, I went to school for music. John was to school for music, and I think we both have understood that trying to do this for a living, it can just end up being work. And for something that we all just like loved so much at one point, it's really a kind of a tragedy to like kind of fall out of love with it because it's just become And that's one of the great things about Eric and his songwriting is that he went to school for acting. He went to school for something different. He kind of came back, and he like music kind of brought him back. So that's, again, in terms of a group and relationships and having more than one person, that's where the checks and balances thing really just like shines like super bright.
It took me doing it in a way that didn't satisfy me to see what I needed to do to actually have it satisfy me. You know, because there was a period of time where I thought, well, that'd be great as long as I'm getting my whatever it is a night sitting on a tour bus playing Thursday through Sunday, I'll be happy. And I did that, and I wasn't. And it took me a long time to reconcile the fact that I wasn't happy with myself. And I went through some shit for it, you know, like it's not, you know, I don't want to get too much into it, but like, you know, I've had to do a lot of reflecting and self-growth over the last year. So like, but I'm still just grateful for every experience I've had because they've got me here, you know. And I think it's not being resentful, not being regretful, and just appreciating every single breath I've been able to take in this field and otherwise, because I've learned something from every single thing.